I've been actually watching plenty of presentation at the Web Summit, so I just thought it would be better probably not having another pitch deck and just telling you stories. Stories are good, especially when, as I am, I'm from a group of media, a group of entertainment, basically VIVENDI being, since Napoleon III, the main European group in terms of telling stories. From Canal+ to Dailymotion, from Prisma Media to VIVENDI Village, the festival, we've always been telling stories. And actually, there's one of these stories which is missing. I feel like there's one of these stories which should be at the top front of the headlines and which is obviously not. The one about geopolitics of the Web3, the geopolitics of the token economy. You remember geopolitics? Geopolitics was about states. It was, since the Treaty of Westphalia, actually the war between nations. It was exactly having countries fighting each other. And actually, having countries fighting each other was very comfortable because actually it was simple. It was kind of the geopolitics, meaning the politics of Earth, the politics of nations. And this has been structuring our history quite forever. However, things have been changing. And it's nothing new, actually. Things have been changing with the digital era. However, to be honest, at the beginning, it was kind of the same. There was no state. There was a new kind of state. These new kind of states, you know their name, were basically the GAFA. It was no state, but they were almost states. There was so much almost states that actually, they even for some, started to look like cities, region, territories, and even states. What has been the difference? I'm sure if you've been to the Silicon Valley, or even in China, you can see how, even in Korea, Chaebol are replicating the schema of cities. But you've probably read that the big difference has been when the companies started to think about money. And the first of these has been obviously Facebook with Libra a few years ago. Starting to shift in some term between a company to something more than a company, but sticking with this geopolitic broad idea of having kind of always states in the middle, states plus something new being these new corporates. This is this whole story, the shift between international relation, national, nations, and public relation. Having new players, new public, not only corporates, by the way, but also NGOs, associations, and even with social media, probably people. Anyone can interact on the social media with organizations, with corporates directly. And this has been this big shift. However, this was just the beginning. And this was still quite comfortable, to be honest, because actually it was very vertical. This was not really changing anything about our point of view. It was just new players, very centralized player, building a new way to connect. This has been the story until very recently, and you probably have some ideas of where I'm coming. This story has been radically changed very recently, shifting from this centralized ecosystem to a new ecosystem, very decentralized. This shift has been very obvious for people like you, which are very connected in the Web3 industry, in the blockchain ecosystem, in the crypto ecosystem and community. However, this is not so obvious. And to tell the truth, most of the people have still no idea of what this impact in terms of geopolitics. And this is what I want to share with you today. I would like to share with you today the top five things that you should know about geopolitics of token economy. Actually, in the Web3, we always forget about geopolitics except for the first one. And I'm sure you have it in mind, regulation. This is when states are crossing our ecosystem. And this is probably always very interesting to discuss with any of you, because you will probably, each of you, have a very straightforward vision of regulation. White or black, good or bad. For the cypherpunk, any regulation is anyway bad. For most of the people in the crypto community, any regulation is just not enough. On my side, this is not just for being VP of VIVENDI, but also because I have another cap of mayor in France. I would say any regulation is already a first step. It's not perfect, but any regulation allows you to develop your business comfortably. Regulation has been a huge story because actually each of the countries, especially in Europe, but not only, has been discovering how regulation can be a very nice weapon, a weapon for attractivity. And this is actually my second thing. With MiCA being enforced next year, regulation become a real weapon to attract new companies. In France, we've been pretty good attracting, for example, I know he's speaking right after me, Binance in France. We've been very good to develop new ecosystems with Station F. If I take Europe as a whole, we've been lucky enough to host you here or to host Web Summit at the other side of the city of Lisbon. Building ecosystem require actually the regulation. Regulation leads really to building ecosystem based on the attractivity. And yesterday, to tell the truth, there was a little thing which was even more important than regulation. It was taxation. But to be honest, most of the players of the Web3 today have been changing their mind. They're not looking for the best taxation rate. They are looking for the best and more clear regulation. And that's why I believe, especially after what's happening in the US and globally in America, that Europe has a real chance when it comes to Web3. Regulation, attractivity. The third one is actually liquidity. And the geopolitics of liquidity is something pretty interesting. Today, you would be probably pretty impressed to know that the top one country today in terms of liquidity is, if I'm correct, Vietnam. It's just nice fact. In Europe, you have countries such as Spain with something like between 3 and 5% of citizens holding cryptos. But if you go in the eastern side of Europe, I was in Bulgaria a few weeks ago, I was very impressed. More than 15% of people were having cryptos. Why? There's two reasons, to be honest, to explain this liquidity of crypto. The first one is basically how people are trusting or not their government, and I really believe this is something structuring this geopolitics of liquidity. In Bulgaria, the fact that they are within and outside of Europe, or European Union in the meantime, is something explaining probably the distrust of the government, of the state, and in the meantime, how many people have cryptocurrencies. I was very impressed myself. In the meantime, you have other countries with a real shift. A real shift when actually crypto as you know it is being replaced by something else, building a new kind of liquidity. 2 weeks ago, I was actually in China, and you probably know already, China is not really the country where cryptocurrencies are really legal. So therefore, the liquidity should be none. You know, obviously, that is not absolutely true, but actually, the real and interesting thing is that the government pushed for building their own CBDC, CBDC being my fourth element of geopolitics of token economy, and pushing all the citizens to go from their money to this CBDC, a retail one. I was very impressed. I was very impressed to see how people were really easily actually adopting CBDCs. And the adoption was explained actually just by easy tools. Easy wallet within actually WeChat tomorrow probably, but other very easy tools. Having something simple, a simple funnel, a simple channel, simple tools is probably the key for adoption, and explain also the liquidity more macroeconomically speaking. I used to say that this liquidity is actually based also on application. If you have good application, good use cases, you will have a lot of adoption, or at least a good rate of adoption. But to explain this liquidity, I would say that actually more than just having good use cases, you also need, remember the number one, the government use cases. And for me, this is why CBDC will really change this geopolitics of token economy. Because actually, when tomorrow you will be able, through your token, to have your DID integrated within your wallet, you'll be able to use new use cases directly day to day. And obviously, this is something game-changing for the industry, but also probably for global finance. Christine Lagarde, the president of the BCE, the European Bank, said that in 2 years, we'll have actually the crypto euro. But we'll not wait 2 years to have already the CBDC in China or in other countries, in Africa, in Asia, in America, South America. CBDC is really game-changing. This is game-changing because this is simple, because it's comfortable even for the state, but this is also a revolution in terms of ideology. Remember what I said at the very beginning, that at the very beginning, geopolitics was very centralized and was going to be changed, transformed due to the decentralization. However, CBDC is opening the door to something new, which is actually re-centralization. And we have to keep in mind that all the people who yesterday were very afraid of crypto, of Web3, of Bitcoin, because it was anti-bank, decentralized, anti-third party, are little by little, in this new geopolitical landscape, going to be the first winner of the Web3, since Web3 is driving tomorrow toward a new re-centralization. And this is the fifth thing I wanted to tell you, re-centralization. I'll give you an example, very concrete, talking about VIVENDI. VIVENDI has been founded, as I told you, by Napoleon. It was at the very beginning a water company, the water company of the Perrier brother. You know the Perrier bottle of water? This was how VIVENDI has been launched. Then it became a real estate company, a finance company, and today it is an entertainment, media, and gaming and advertising company. I mean, creating content is our job. But actually, we are very decentralized. We are very decentralized because actually our brands, the one you have here, are more famous than the one of VIVENDI. Most of you know Gameloft. Most of you probably know Canal+, but maybe you didn't even know about VIVENDI. During years, because of the regulation, because of GDPR, because of all these frames in Europe and outside Europe, we were not able to do centralized CRM. Sharing the data between these BUs were very difficult. It was very difficult, not to say impossible. Tomorrow, this centralized model will allow us, and probably you, by the way, to build new model and to re-centralize your data, while still respecting, by the way, your consumer, your clients, your ecosystem. And for me, this is the key. Web3 is providing the re-centralization, but with something more important, ethics, a new re-centralization with ethics. For years, especially in Europe probably, hard sciences were more important, or at least seen as more important than social sciences. Web3 will be this revolution with a comeback of social sciences. The new geopolitics will not be decentralized. The best proof is actually this event. We are actually re-centralizing the content in one place, even if after we can share it. The future of geopolitics in terms of digital economy will therefore not be decentralized. It will be probably new way of thinking the content, thinking the value, and actually, this is probably for the best. I'll finish with maybe 2 little stories before being out of time. First story is about how you can probably have countries knowing exactly how this recentralization is coming. 5 years ago already, I was actually in Slovenia. I met with officials, and actually, I was very impressed to see with them how liquidities were actually pouring on the Web3 ecosystem of Slovenia. And we were wondering why. After a while working, studying, analyzing, we discovered that the funds were coming from China, and that China, in fact, following their politics of one road, one belt, were just actually trying to lock the Web3 ecosystem of Slovenia. Why? Because they knew already that the recentralization was going to be based on the best product of Slovenia, exchanges and wallets. The new point of contact, the single point of contact of this recentralization. And actually Chinese people, Chinese government, was just following the policies they were leading since the Middle Age. They had said that one road, one belt was going to be until the Adriatic. They wanted the harbor of the Adriatic. But from the Middle Age, Slovenia was saying that it was the real identity of their territory. Even the Habsburg had said that these harbors were part of the sovereignty of their empire. But in China, they were not really in any hurry. They were just waiting the right timing. They waited until 2008 to acquire the Pire harbor in Greece. And they were saying to the government of Slovenia, we're not in any hurry. We'll wait. Tomorrow, if you have to choose between your financial, economical sovereignty based on your wallet and your industry and your harbor industry, what will you choose? Choosing what will be your sovereignty tomorrow is not actually something coming. It's already here. Geopolitics of the token economy is already a real matter for states, for sure, but also for you, startups and corporates. Second story I wanted to tell you is actually how you can probably already have in mind this recentralization. Next year, you probably know it, third-party cookies are going to disappear. Third-party cookies, with their hand, will be ending a real industry. We will be impacted as a media industry and advertising industry for sure, especially if we don't reinvent anything. And I believe that when the history is opening a new page, for the good or the worse, by the way, this is always a good timing to think about what are the impact more globally. Here, the impact will be super important. Why? Because for the first time, there will be a need of a replacement. We're not going to let this huge industry disappearing. But actually, the only way to reassure this industry and all the clients, you are the clients of the cookieless world which is coming, will be probably based on 3 things: ethics, transparency, and new kind of value. Building the new world based on new value, this is your job. This should be at least your job. And I'll end here hoping that you will be part of this new story starting right now. Thank you.